I should have known something was wrong the moment I woke up on that cold hospital bed years ago, staring at the cracked ceiling tiles and feeling a burning ache just beneath my ribs. But what haunts me most isn't the pain. It's the memory of my mother whispering into my ear while I drifted in and out of anesthesia. "Do this for your sister. You owe her your life." Her voice sounded less like a request and more like a threat wrapped in affection. Back then, I didn't understand why those words terrified me more than the surgery itself. Now I do. My name is Aaniya, and this story begins long before the DNA test that shattered every truth I was raised to believe. It begins with the lie I didn't know I was living. The day my parents told me I had to donate part of my liver to my sister, Sadia, the winter sunlight had filtered weakly through our living room curtains. I was sitting on the edge of the sofa, rubbing my hands together, listening to the clock tick louder than my heartbeat. "Aaniya, she will die without this," my mother said, gripping the armrest like she was delivering a final verdict. "And you're the only match," my father added without looking at me, his jaw tight, his tone flat, as if my existence served no purpose except to save the child they actually loved. My stomach twisted. Sadia had been physically and emotionally abusive to me my whole childhood, pushing me down the stairs when I was 9, locking me outside in winter, screaming at me for breathing too loudly. And every time I tried to defend myself, my parents acted as if I was the problem. Still, when they spoke that day, it didn't feel like a request. It felt like fate cornering me in a room with no windows. "You'll do it," my mother said. "This family needs you." That word, family, had always felt like a noose around my neck. As the surgery approached, I tried to find reasons to refuse. I told them I had just started a job at a call center after months of unemployment. I told them I wasn't mentally ready. I even told them I was scared, something I rarely admitted. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. "You're not a child. Stop being dramatic." And my mother, she gave Sadia a glass of water, tucked a blanket around her shoulders, and said, "If you don't help her, you will regret it your whole life." They made me feel like saying no was equal to murder. And I, idiotically loyal, permanently conditioned, finally said yes. But that night, lying awake, listening to the muffled hum of the city through my bedroom window, I wondered if my life had any value outside of what they could take from me. The day before the operation, Sadia walked into my room without knocking. She leaned against the door frame with her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "You know," she said, her voice dripping with her usual acidity, "this doesn't make us equal." My heart clenched. "I'm not doing it to be equal," she scoffed. "Of course you're not. You're doing it because if you didn't, well, imagine what everyone would think of you." I swallowed hard. "I'm doing it because they said you'd die." Sadia smirked, that smug, cruel twist of her lips. "And you believed that?" Her words hung in the air like a storm cloud, thick with something I didn't understand at the time. I brushed past her, refusing to let my fear show, but her question stayed lodged in my mind like a thorn. Why would she say something like that? The surgery happened. It was painful, terrifying, and left me with a scar that still burns when I remember what I lost, not just physically, but emotionally. My recovery was slow, and my parents barely visited my room. Meanwhile, they hovered around Sadia like she was made of glass. One evening, when I tried to walk to the kitchen alone, I overheard them talking in hushed tones. "She'll be fine," my mother said. "She's always been strong. She can handle the pain." "She better," my father muttered. "Sadia's the one we couldn't risk." The words stabbed me. They couldn't risk Sadia. Me? I was expendable. From that moment, something inside me began to crack, not loudly, not violently, but quietly, like a fault line forming deep beneath the earth. Months later, after I regained my strength, I moved out. I rented a small, shabby room near my workplace and tried to rebuild my life. My job at the call center offered minimal pay and maximum stress, rude customers, impossible targets, and supervisors who acted like drill sergeants. But at least there, unlike home, my pain wasn't invisible. I tried my best to forget Sadia, forget my parents, forget the surgery, Forget everything. But trauma is like an unwelcome guest. It doesn't leave just because you shut the door. Every night, I would touch the scar near my abdomen, feeling the uneven ridge beneath my fingertips and wondering why I was never enough. Why my parents looked at me with duty instead of love. Why Sadia hated me so fiercely. Why being born into that family felt like a punishment. Everything changed one afternoon when a health insurance audit at work required blood group confirmation. It was routine. Annoying but necessary. I went to the clinic, submitted my sample, and expected nothing. But the next week, the HR girl knocked on my desk and said, "There's a problem with your blood match records. The previous information doesn't align with the new results." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She handed me the form. My blood type on record, submitted by my parents years ago, was B+. My new test said O-. A mistake? Maybe. But some mistakes don't sit quietly. I went for a second test privately. Then a third. Same result. O-. A cold, unfamiliar fear slowly spread through my chest. Why would my parents record a fake blood type? Why didn't anything match? And then an idea struck me. Terrifying, absurd, impossible. But I couldn't shake it off. 2 days later, I bought a DNA test kit. Not for curiosity. Not for fun. But because for the first time in my life, I felt something dark and hot rising inside me. Anger mixed with a sickening hope that maybe, just maybe, the lie was bigger than I imagined. When the results arrived, I opened them with trembling hands. What I saw made my breath stop midair. I wasn't biologically related to either of my parents. Not even a fraction. My vision blurred. The room tilted. My whole life. Every wound, every abuse, every moment of being treated as lesser, suddenly made horrifying sense. If I wasn't theirs, then who was I? And why had they forced me to save Sadia? But as I stared at the document, another terrifying thought crept in. If they weren't my parents, then what were they? And what else had they lied about? The night I discovered the DNA results, the world around me seemed to fall into silence. No cars outside, no humming fans, no distant street vendors calling out. It felt like my entire life had paused, waiting for me to acknowledge the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. I wasn't their biological child. My legs felt numb as I sank onto the edge of my bed, clutching the printed report. The letters blurred through my tears. I thought back to every moment in my childhood when my mother had pushed me aside, every time my father had said, "Sadia needs this more," or "Stop causing trouble, Aaniya." I remembered how they never celebrated my achievements, how even when I topped my class, they barely looked up from their tea. It wasn't disappointment. It was distance. A distance they had never explained. Now I finally understood why. A strange calm settled over me. Not peace, but the quiet before a storm. I wiped my face, sat up straighter, and whispered to myself, "They owe me answers." The next morning, I requested a week off from work. My supervisor frowned but approved it when he saw the hollow look in my eyes. As I walked home, my mind ran on a loop. If they aren't my parents, then why keep me? Why raise me? Why sacrifice my body to save Sadia? I needed to confront them. But something told me I couldn't go empty-handed. So before heading to my parents' home, I took the DNA report to a lawyer my coworker had once mentioned. His office smelled of old books and mint tea. He was an older man with gray hair and a calm voice. "What brings you here?" he asked gently. I handed him the papers, with shaking hands. "I need to know if this has legal implications." He adjusted his glasses, scanned the pages, and his eyebrows knitted together. "This is serious," he murmured. "If you were forced into a surgical procedure under false parental identity, it's a potential criminal case, even medical fraud." My breath caught. "Fraud?" He nodded. "Yes. And depending on why they kept this truth hidden, it could go deeper. But before any action can be taken, you need answers. And you need to be careful. People who hide something this big rarely do it for innocent reasons." My heart thudded, painfully. "I'm going to confront them." He hesitated. "If you learn something dangerous, call me immediately." Dangerous. The word stayed lodged in my ribs. By the time I reached my parents' house, the sky had turned a dull gray, matching the heaviness in my chest. I walked through the front gate, the same gate I had walked through thousands of times, feeling unwelcome each time. My mother opened the door. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Not in joy, not in love, in unease. "Aaniya? Why are you here without calling?" I didn't answer. I walked past her, into the living room where my father sat sipping tea. He looked up, startled, as if my presence was an intrusion. I placed the DNA report on the center table. "I'm not your daughter," I said softly. The room froze. My mother shut the door slowly, her fingers trembling. My father's teacup clinked against the saucer. "What nonsense is this?" he snapped. I folded my arms, grounding myself. I took a DNA test. Twice. Then a third time. I pointed to the report. "These tests don't lie. So tell me, who am I?" My mother collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her palms. My father stood up abruptly, pacing the floor like a trapped animal. "You shouldn't have done that test," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You shouldn't have lied to me for 26 years, I shot back. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Finally, my mother lifted her head. Her eyes were red. "You weren't supposed to find out." "Find out what?" I demanded. "That I'm nothing but what? A replacement? A tool?" My father slammed his fist on the table. "You were brought here to keep this family together." I stared at him in disbelief. Keep the family together? By being abused? By being forced into surgery? How does that make sense? My mother whispered, "Please, Aaniya, listen." "No," I said. "Not until you tell me the truth." She looked at my father, then back at me, and then she said something that made my skin crawl. "You were never meant for us. You were meant for Sadia." My breath hitched. "What does that mean?" My father rubbed his temples. "You were adopted privately. Unofficially. No papers. No court. Her doctor arranged it." I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "Why?" "Why me?" They exchanged glances, fearful, guilty, exhausted. "Because," my mother whispered, "Sadia was born with severe liver complications. The doctor said she might need a living donor someday. He said it would be easier if the donor was raised in the same household." My stomach lurched. "So you adopted me to harvest my liver?" My father snapped, "Watch your words." But there was panic behind his anger, a crack in his authority. "You didn't adopt me to love me," I said, my voice hollow. "You adopted me to use me." My mother let out a broken sob. "We had no choice." I stepped back, shaking my head. "No choice? You had every choice. You could have loved me, cared for me, but you didn't. You treated me like a spare part." My father shot back, "You saved your sister's life. That should matter." I stared at him in shock. "You don't even deny it." He swallowed hard but didn't speak. In that moment, something inside me shattered. Not like glass, but like stone breaking after years of pressure. My entire identity, my understanding of family, my place in the world, it all crumbled. I had been living with strangers. Not just strangers. People who had groomed me since childhood to one day save their real daughter's life. I took a deep breath, struggling to stay upright. "And my biological parents?" I asked. "Do you even know who they were?" My mother's lips trembled. We never asked." The air left my lungs. "You stole me." "No," my father shouted. "We paid the doctor." I froze. "Paid." My voice cracked. "So, I wasn't adopted. I was bought." Neither of them answered. My chest tightened until I thought I would collapse. I picked up the DNA report, turned my back on them, and walked to the door. My mother cried after me, "Aaniya, please. We need to explain." I paused, gripping the door frame. "You don't need to explain anything," I said without turning around. "You already did." I opened the door, stepped out, and shut it behind me, locking the past inside. But as I reached the gate, my phone buzzed. It was a message from a number I didn't recognize. Only one sentence. We need to talk. It's about where you really come from. My blood ran cold. The unknown numbers message played over and over in my mind as I took the bus home, my fingers gripping the seat so tightly my knuckles turned white. We need to talk. It's about where you really come from. Whoever sent it knew the truth, maybe more than even my so-called parents had admitted. Part of me wanted to ignore it, crawl into bed, and forget everything. But something deeper, anger, curiosity, desperation, pushed me forward. I typed a reply. Who are you? The response came within seconds. Meet me tomorrow. 12 p.m. Old City Hospital. 3rd floor, room 312. My pulse spiked. The Old City Hospital had closed down 5 years ago. The idea of meeting someone there felt like walking into a ghost story. But I went anyway. The next morning, fog blanketed the city. The hospital stood like a forgotten skeleton of concrete and broken windows. Peeling paint. Rust. Silence thick in the hallways. I climbed the stairwell, my footsteps echoing off the cracked tiles. When I reached room 312, the door was ajar. Inside, a man around 60 sat in a chair, hands clasped tightly, eyes red as if he hadn't slept in years. He looked up when I stepped in. You look just like her, he whispered. My breath caught. Like who? He motioned for me to sit. My name is Dr. Rafiq Hassan, he said quietly. I was the one who arranged your adoption. A cold tremor ran through me. You mean the one who sold me? He shut his eyes, guilt washing over his expression. Yes. I didn't sit. Why am I here? He took a long breath, as if preparing himself to exhume a buried corpse. Because I owe you the truth. And because your biological family, they deserve to know what happened. My heart hammered. You know who they are? He nodded. Yes. Your mother was my patient. A strong woman. Brave. She didn't want to give you up. I blinked hard. Then why did she? He looked away, swallowing the answer. Because she died during childbirth. The words felt like a physical blow. My knees shook. My voice cracked. She died? And my father? Dr. Rafiq's hands trembled. He wasn't in the picture. Your mother came alone. She gave birth in panic, in fear. And when she passed away, I didn't know what to do. I was drowning in debt. The hospital was corrupt, and your adoptive parents. I raised a hand, my voice shaking with fury. Don't call them my parents. He nodded quickly. They were desperate for a compatible donor for Sadia. They offered money, more than I had seen in my entire career. My stomach churned. So you saw me, a newborn, motherless, and you sold me. He winced as if slapped. I tell myself every day that I did it to give you a home, but that's a lie. I did it because I was weak, and I've carried the guilt ever since. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Where is my biological family? I asked. His lips trembled. I traced what little records existed. Your mother was from Bahawalpur. Her name was Sahar, and she had 2 sisters. You have an aunt still alive. Her name is Rimsha. My heartbeat kicked into a sprint. I have family? Yes, he whispered. Real family. And they've been searching for answers all these years. My breath hitched. Why now? I asked. Why tell me this after decades? He held my gaze, eyes heavy with remorse. Because when I heard about the liver transplant, how they forced you, I realized you were never safe with them. And when the DNA test surfaced, I knew they'd panic. They might try to keep you quiet. The room seemed to shrink. Keep me quiet, how? I whispered. He hesitated. I heard rumors. They argued with me once, saying if you ever found out the truth, they'd make sure no one believed you. They've done it before. And I can't stay silent anymore. My hands turned icy. This wasn't just betrayal. It was danger. A swirl of emotions erupted inside me. Grief for a mother I never met, rage for the life stolen from me, and fear of what my adoptive family might do next. I stepped back, needing air, needing space. Where is my aunt? I asked. I can take you, he said softly. I shook my head sharply.
No.
After everything you've done, you're the last person I trust. Dr. Rafiq lowered his head. I understand. I turned to leave, but he called after me. There's one more thing. I froze. The adoption or the purchase, his voice faltered. Your biological mother left a letter. I kept it hidden all these years. I was too much of a coward to give it to them. But it belongs to you. He extended a small, yellowed envelope. My fingers shook as I took it. I didn't open it, not yet. I couldn't bear to. Instead, I walked out of that abandoned hospital and into the crisp, gray daylight. Back in my room, the envelope sat on my desk like a ticking bomb. I inhaled slowly, then opened it. My dearest child, if you are reading this, I am no longer in this world. I prayed to hold you once more, but fate was unkind. I don't know who will raise you, or if they will love you, but I want you to know this. You were not unwanted. You were my courage, my hope, my final gift to the world. Never believe you were born for someone else's purpose. You are meant for something greater. Find your truth. Live boldly. Your mother, Sahar. The paper blurred under my tears, hot, heavy, unstoppable. For the first time in my life, I cried not from pain, but from being seen, wanted,
Loved.
even if only for a moment. That night, I made my decision. I packed my bags, grabbed the letter, took the DNA report, and booked a bus ticket to Bawalpur. I wasn't running away.
I was running toward myself.
Toward truth.
Toward real family.
Toward a future that wasn't built on lies. As I locked my door for the last time, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message wasn't from the doctor. It was from my adoptive father. We need to talk.
Now.
I stared at the screen, my heart steady and calm for the first time in years. I deleted the message, then turned off my phone. In the window's reflection, I saw a different woman. Stronger, sharper, unbroken. Aaniya, daughter of Sahar. Survivor.
Fighter.
And as the bus roared to life, rumbling beneath me, I whispered to myself, my story starts now.